Hello and welcome to Gladys Cake Kitchen. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I made this tall standing Ganache first birthday cake adorned with decorations such as these pre-painted decorative balls, fondant rainbow elements and clouds, and a handcrafted fondant teddy bear. For added value, I'll be talking you through the raw challenges I faced translating the design idea of this cake into actual cake form and how I ended up with a cake slightly different from what I had in mind. I trust this video will be of some value to you, so without having to waste your time, let's jump right into making this happen. On my work table is a 12-inch cake board over which some ganache is spread to hold in place a 5-inch cake card. Ganache again is applied over the cake card before the first layer of cake is placed. This is the first of 6 layers that is to be filled and stacked to create this tall standing cake, but notably the cake layers are gluten-free, which means they are dense and heavy. Having some understanding of how light or dense cake layers are will help stacking your cakes for better results. The cake layers are filled with chocolate buttercream, and as the process develops, the stacked cake layers are checked for alignment by looking closely over the cake at eye level and moving the scraper around the cake slowly without tension or obstruction. The first 3 layers of cake are stacked and the cake is left to chill. This is necessary to help the cake set with the buttercream together, aiding stability before the other cake layers are added. After chilling for 10 minutes, the cake is returned to continue the stacking process. Notice though, the weight of the heavy cake layers are weighing down, hence pushing out the buttercream from in between the cake layers. This is a normal part of the decorating process but has to be checked, as leaving this may cause stability issues such as shifting and sliding. With the cake layers left to set earlier in the fridge, the risk of shifting and sliding is reduced and the hanging buttercream is cleared while stacking continues. 4 layers in and a dowel is inserted to hold the cake layers together. Filling the cake here is slightly tricky, but I managed to get this done and another layer of cake is placed. At this point, I could feel the heavy weight of the cake while scraping around it, which is making me slightly nervous. If you've been on this channel before, you'll see my cake stacking processes haven't always gone to plan, and in one of my most challenging videos to date, the cake fell apart, and the video is linked up here in the cards for your convenience. Keeping my nerves away, I managed to get all 6 layers stacked, and this isn't by chance. Following the tedious steps diligently by checking the cake for alignment, checking and doweling the cake layers, and working patiently has helped to stack this cake steadily. The layers are now to be wrapped in cling film, which will hold the cake together and also trap in moisture whilst it's chilling. Okay, so let's talk heavy layers and stacking this cake. Of course, I should add though that a perfectly presented straight standing cake doesn't just happen. It comes as a result of the decisions one has to make about the cake long before the cake is made. And these decisions also include the type of cake and buttercream to use. As a cake maker, sometimes I feel like I have to make decisions as though I am an engineer on a working site, making decisions about foundation, structure, and stability of a cake. With that in mind, I knew that this cake was going to be 11 inches tall and the layers were going to be dense because, as earlier noted, these are gluten-free layers. Gluten-free and eggless layers tend to be on the denser side. Noting that very quickly helped me make a set of decisions which included not adding soft filling to the cake. There's a specific reason for that, and perhaps choice was on my hands. This cake was for a friend, so it was easier for me to make those decisions, whereas if it was for a customer, I would have made a set of different decisions based on their requirement. So for this cake standing at 11 inches tall, I made a decision not to include soft fillings. And if you don't know about soft fillings, these are your jam and caramel. These fillings do not hold themselves and have to be kept contained in the cake. A border has to be piped around the cake into which the soft filling is kept and the layers added to keep the cake tall. The small surface area of a 5-inch diameter was also a problem for me because I thought if the heavy layers towered down on the cake, the surface area was too small and the soft fillings were going to ooze out. So to mitigate that problem and with choice on my side, I opted for chocolate French buttercream, which is a bridge between French buttercream and ganache, which I whipped together for this particular cake. Another thing though is that by layer 4 I had to put a dowel in the cake to keep the cake layers together. This in itself does not generally fix all stability issues, but for the time being it will help keep the layers together, which is a reinforcement for preventing stability issues. There is no one specific way for solving structural issues, and one of the best ways one can solve this problem is to preset a dowel in the cake board long before the cake is stacked. That in itself is intimidating and not generally beginner friendly, but I have employed a different means to stack a cake using dowels, which I will link up here so you can see the alternative way you can fix structural issues in your cake. With that in mind, you will note that I am not going to trim my cakes. If you've been on this channel before, you'll find I like to trim my cakes for a reason. I will note right here for you to check. However, with caramelization not being too bad and the chocolate cake being so heavy, I was worried that trimming the cake was going to cause shifting and sliding, something I was very keen to avoid. Additionally, I wrapped the cake in cling film so that when I go to set the cake will keep its form whilst also retaining moisture in the cake. These are all decisions I made about the cake to guarantee me best results. So I hope with that information you can take something that will help you during your cake decorating process. With that said, let's get back to the work table and crumb coat this cake, and I'll be back to talk to you about some more of this cake. I am crumb coating this cake in a layer of white chocolate ganache by covering the entire cake surface and a scraper used to remove any excess. Notice though, the scraper used here stands a little shorter than the height of the cake, which is likely to create problems, but I'll have to keep an eye on this to ensure no further issues arise. The process of covering and taking off any excess ganache continues until crumb coating is done with the cake looking partly polished. A small-sized comb scraper is employed to scrape the cake clean and the top lip is shaved off. Another layer of ganache is applied, and over here I've had some difficulties due to the consistency of the ganache. Normally I prefer to use spreadable but slightly firm ganache that isn't too runny, except due to the tall nature of the cake I have to work slowly. With that in mind, spreadable yet firm ganache would set quickly, so to sort this issue out I kept my ganache at a slightly running consistency, which was also warm. This nearly melted the cake on the first attempt of use, and after several attempts to scrape the cake clean, here's what we have for our very polished, straight standing cake. I even got to do a little happy dance. The cake is left to set for 15 to 20 minutes before the next phase. Next, the cake is returned to be textured with some white colored ganache dabbed on using a sponge. Goes without saying, the sponge is new, clean and exclusively saved for cake decoration. I have a video linked up here and in the description box, which also includes how I made a white colored ganache for use. When the top and middle part of the cake is covered in texture, the bottom part of the cake is covered in multi-colors of blue ganache, which will be scraped off to create a sky effect. Before we continue, I wanted to take a moment to discuss what was actually going on in my head concerning the concept of this cake and what's actually transpiring on my work table. Mind you, earlier on in this video, I did note that my intention for the cake and how I imagined didn't turn out quite as that, and I ended up with a slightly different cake. I should preface this by also saying I had the choice to do all of these things because the cake was for a friend and a business colleagues. Having said that though, it was my initial intention to represent the cake as a sky blue cake with dotty clouds in, and somehow in my head I imagined I was going to do this in ganache form by dabbing the cake, covering it in texture, leaving that to chill for a minute, coming back, covering it in some blue, and then after scraping, the blue will fill into the texture and then it will complete itself after a polished look as a tone of blue and dotty white, creating the sky effect. I didn't anticipate that this would be as challenging as it has turned out. Looking back, it would have been a good thing to get the best result by using a fondant effect on this cake, creating a marble look on the cake and then airbrushing some of the sky effect. But God knows, covering an 11-inch tall cake in ganache wasn't going to be child's play, and I actually didn't fancy using fondant on this cake. Plus, I was up for a new challenge, and I think the excitement of it got me through the moment, because I also was very unorganized and had to pull this cake together within 48 hours. You'll find throughout the decorating process that creating the effect that I imagined in mind didn't turn out as I wanted, and I settled for a slightly different cake. The variation is not too wide out, so it is fine, and I am happy with the end result. However, it goes to show that sometimes the concepts that is created on the work table may not translate into an actual cake form, and even where it does turn out as imagined, sometimes there are challenges along the way that one will have to mitigate as the decorating process develops. I have several videos on this channel where I have had some challenging cake fails and decorating problems that I have managed to fix, including a cake that fell apart and I put together. I'll link all those resources down in the description box. But let's get back to the work table quickly and get through with this cake, and hopefully we have a beautiful cake to look at in the end. With the white ganache done and the multi-tones of blue added, any excess is scraped off, creating a fault line. Layers of blue and white ganache are applied to give the cake a multi-tone effect. But while scraping the cake, I realized most of the colors were either blended in or scraped out. Hence, I had to keep repeating the process, which didn't quite give me the desired result. At this point, the cake was scraped clean and left to set whilst I decided on how to proceed. The variation in cake temperature was also causing a crack in the cake, which was rather problematic if caution wasn't applied. When the cake is returned, a dabbing of blue is applied into the white areas, but having melted my ganache into a runny consistency, it was still warm while applying it on the cake, which meant the white areas melted alongside the blue, causing both to be blended when I was scraping the cake. This wasn't the effect I had imagined in mind, as I would have preferred the whites to be a bit spottier. After repetitively trying and failing at representing my cake idea in true form, I gave up and covered the top part with a layer of ganache and scraped it clean, resulting in a subtle marble effect. Having already made the rainbow and teddy bear element and left to dry, the cake was later transferred on a fondant covered board, ready for decorations to be added. Decorations include these pre-made polystyrene balls, which are picked on Amazon. In the past, I have gone through the task of making my own, dipping polystyrene balls in chocolate and coating them in gold paint. I have a video showing you how I do this, but never again. These pre-made balls come in different sizes for the best results when making this particular effect on the cake. The balls are added sparingly and the rainbow added on top of the cake. If you'd like to see a full tutorial of the rainbow and teddy bear, please leave a comment below. In the meantime, I'll link some YouTube resources which aren't my videos, just so you could learn how to make a rainbow and teddy bear. With the teddy bear and clouds added, we have a fondant number 1 and an acrylic name tag placed in front of the cake. It says Tony now, but fun fact is the baby's name is actually Tom and not Tony. The acrylic name I ordered for Tom delayed because of postage inconveniences, which meant I had to improvise last minute. The Tony name tag was ordered for another cake earlier, which I decided to snap a bit of the Y off to create a Tom effect. The parents were none the wiser, and on seeing this cake, they would have had a laugh at the trickery employed for Tom's cake. We now have a beautifully well presented cake ready for a much anticipated birthday celebration. Happy birthday, Tom. Well, our cake is done, but hopefully you've learned something new which should help you along your decorating journey. Remember to be kind to yourself, enjoy the process, and leave room for changes which will happen along the decorating process. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.